Hello. My name is Konrad Wojtowicz, and I am the president of myPolitics International. And today, on our international debate about the EU justice policy, we have an honor to guest members of the European Youth Parties, Ronis from Latvian Conservatives, Levente Sikra from Fidelitas, the youth party of Fidesz from Hungary.
Hi.
Maria Raczyńska from the Youth Forum Law and Justice from Poland,
Good evening.
and Wacław Jan Kroczek from Federation of Young Social-Democrats.
Good evening, welcome everybody.
Okay, so I think we shall start with the first topic about the superiority of the EU law of domestic laws. It is settled, for example, by precedents Costanel and Bangent laws that European Union law is superior to domestic laws. It also applies to Court of Justice of the European Union's jurisdiction. So, in short, what do you think about the CJEU's superiority over domestic law and national legislation, and whether it is a positive issue? And the first speaker would be Ronis from Latvia. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Konrad. Hello, I'm Rodis Ronis from the Latvian Young Conservatives. For me, the CGEU superiority over this national legislation is a positive issue. EU law primacy as a way to override national discrepancies in vital EU-wide decisions, it is a positive practice. It is quite vital to strengthen the EU's power in legislating dumping and other anti-competitive practices. This legal principle, as decided in the cases in 1960s, is a coherent and vital part of the whole legislative process and has been for more than 50 years. There can be individual cases where a member state does not agree with a specific provision of EU law, but of course, then the question goes up to the CGEU. But it is quite necessary to have a single point of view on all the legislations and all the legislation and regulations that the EU puts out, because of mostly economic roles is what I usually perceive, but not everything else for me is not quite as vital as that one. I'm prepared to talk more about the other topics, but I think we could just start a discussion here.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. And the next speaker would be Levente Sikra from Hungary. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I also welcome everyone, and thank you for the invitation. On the issue, I think there are strict rules of the EU. There are basic laws of the EU, which is not a constitution, of course, and we will discuss that later. But there are laws of the EU, and that there are competences of the EU, and there are competences of the nation states. So I think we should state that the competence of the CGEU is superior in the competences of the EU. But the competences of the nation state, we must protect the superiority of the national courts and the national constitutional courts, because it is very important to remember that the EU is not a state, it's not a federal state, it's just an alliance, and we must respect the nation's sovereignty, and we must respect the member states' legal system. So I think we should protect the sovereignty in this issue. So the CGEU should have the last word in the competences of EU. For example, custom issues or other issues like that. So which are common policies in the EU, but in national and domestic issues, they don't have to have the last word. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the first speaker would be Maria Raczyńska from Youth Forum Law and Justice. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, what I think we should mention is that European Union's institutions doesn't have direct democratic components. They are not elected democratically. So actually, when the nation delegates powers to the institutions, those are actually national institutions. And so how can we pass it to the European Union? In our legal system, it's only through treaties. So what actually Polish Constitutional Tribunal stated lately is that European Union's law is legally binding in Poland when it doesn't exceed competences delegated to the European Union through the treaties. So yes, I think European Union law should be binding in the states, in the member states, but only in the areas that were delegated to the European Union from the member states through the treaties. Tribunal of Justice cannot just give statements, cannot decide on matters that it doesn't have a legal base to actually judge. And I think that's what I want to say.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. And the last speaker answering this topic would be Wacław Jankroczek, Federation of Young Social Democrats. The floor is yours. You are muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much for the voice. First and for all, I would like to state that the propaganda of the far right often says that the international acts of the CJEU are more important than the Polish constitution, which isn't true. The constitution of Poland is more important than the international law. However, the international laws are more important than the legal national acts. And this is something very important that I would like to emphasize, which is the precedency. And here it is. It's as simple as that. Constitution, CJEU, and finally, legal acts. And I believe it is very important that the CJEU is more important than the legal acts. There has to be an European institution that overwatches the law that is being created by national states. And the European Union has to protect the common values, the values on which we all agreed upon our commitment, upon our membership of the European Union. So, if the Polish government introduces the so-called LGBT-free zones as a legal act, then we have, fortunately, the CJEU, which has the right to override this act, which has the right to announce this act as illegal in the light of the European common law. And in this, there is my greatest hope that no country, however powerful it is, however powerful the autocratic government might be, cannot create the law which is outright against the European common law.
Okay, thank you very much. And this elapsed our first topic in this discussion. So we can move forward to the second issue, which is quite similar to the European Union law superiority over national laws. Specifically, for example, Article 7 of the Treaty on the European Union gives the European Union competence to check constitutional practices and secure the rule of law in the national states and the member states of the European Union. So what do you think about this intervention of the organs of the European Union and the constitutional practices and the rule of law of its member states, whether the European Union should or should not intervene in the rule of law of its member countries? And the first speaker would be again Wacław Jan Kroczek from Federation of Young Social Democrats. The floor is yours.
Again, the rule of law is the emphasis of an independent state. If a country declares itself is independent and acts not in accordance with the rule of law, then it is in fact not independent. It is in fact not a sovereign state. A state can lose its sovereignty not only to the foreign countries, not only to the foreign powers, but also it can lose its sovereignty to the inner strength, to the inner powers, to autocrats which often act against its own constitution. And that is the role of the rule of law. That is also the role of the CGEU, to act as a policeman, which can always remind the countries what is the most important. As we entered the European Union, we agreed in all the treaties on the commonship of values. Among these values, there were human rights, there were human freedoms, social solidarity, and also rule of law as the integral part of the European values upon which we all agreed.
Thank you very much for your answer, and we shall move to the second speaker, Maja Raczyńska, Youth Forum of Law and Justice. The floor is yours.
First, I would like to quickly mention that there are no LGBTQ free zones in Poland, and there has never been.
Yes, they are. Of course, they are.
It's just media invented fake news. But moving to the question.
This isn't true.
Okay, sorry not to interrupt the speech of Maja Raczyńska. Yeah, the floor is yours again.
About yes, moving to the question. First of all, I am not exactly sure if European Union is actually has a competence to judge whether the rule of law is executed in member states or not. For example, a Polish Constitutional Court has mentioned that according to Polish standards, judges of European Union are not exactly chosen in the right way because they are being chosen by executive power and for a cadency, which in Poland would be considered not following the rule of law and not being a right procedure. There are, of course, procedures mentioned in the ruling of European Union where you can decide that some country is not following the rule of law, but it never happened in the European Union yet. While we have a lot of talking. We have, for example, blocking the national plan of recovery plan for Poland, for Hungary, where we don't have a decision, legally binding decision, that any of those states is not following the rule of law. And I think that this is actually not following the rule of law by European Union. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And Wacław Jan Kroczek requested ad vocem, so 1 minute, please. The floor is yours.
Yes, I'm mostly surprised and disappointed that as I assume, fellow women from my country denies the existence of so-called LGBT-free zones. Dear friend, I'm sorry to remind you of some fact. Here it is. This is the map of Poland, the map of voivodeships, the map of powiats, counties, and municipalities, which have adopted the evil law, the law which declared the administrative unit as an area free of LGBT ideology, the so-called municipalities, families card. And we are not ideology. And I, as an LGBT person, can state you this. I am a human, not an ideology. And something more. Perhaps this can be more telling for you. These are leaflets attached to the newspaper called Gazeta Polska, Polish newspaper, which is very much obedient towards the Polish government. And here it is outright declared. Strefa wolna od LGBT, the LGBT-free zone.
The time has elapsed, so yeah, please finish. Okay. Yes, so now Maria has a right to respond to Václav's statement. Would you like to use this right?
Yes, well, first of all, in Poland, we have a freedom of speech, and different people can just show their opinions. According to those leaflets, I remember this case, and the newspaper explained that it is against an ideology. So if you are not an ideology, it's not against you, so you don't have anything to worry about. And well, there is no law that would discriminate LGBTQ people in any of those places that were mentioned on this map. Maybe there was some statement that kind of, I cannot be 100% sure of it, but it's absolutely not legally binding, and any discrimination in Poland is prohibited. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
I
So,
do
no,
not have to worry
unfortunately, you cannot respond to advance response. So the first speaker would be Levente
There is no ideology written here.
from Hungary, answering the second topic. So the intervention of the European organs in the member states' rule of law, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just a statement in the beginning. So I think LGBT is an ideology, and it's an international movement. It is hard to deny that, and it is not equivalent to the gay and LGBT people. So this is a very important distinction. First of all, I think we should remember that the states created the EU and not the other way around. So the states are more superior than the EU. Secondly, the EU is an alliance of independent nation states, which is very important, and this is in the EU treaties. So we should keep that in mind. And the third thing I want to say is that attacking member states on domestic issues is divisive in the EU. And we, in Hungary and also in Poland, the government always get accusations that we divide the EU. This is not true. This is a lie. The divisive thing is when the EU wants to say that what policies we should follow in Hungary and in Poland and in other countries. This is divisive because we have democracy, we have elections, and we elected a government, and we are able to elect another government, but the EU is not able to elect another government in Hungary and in any other member states. So I think this is very important. And in closing, so the values you all agreed on, Václav said many times. What are these values exactly? Because we don't really have a common common definition to that, and this is also the same for rule of law. No one denies that rule of law is important. In Hungary, we have rule of law, but rule of law has no objective definition. It is a debate since decades between scientists, legal scientists. So no one can say which objective definition rule of law has, and we don't have to attack member states about rule of law questions.
Thank you very much. And Václav Jan Kroczek requested some. So 1 minute for you. The floor is yours. You're muted. You need to unmute yourself again.
The previous speaker from Hungary said that we have no objective definition of European values. It isn't true, because I have to remind you of something which is called the European Card of Basic Laws of the European Union, which was adopted in the year of 2009, and it collects all the basic human laws and social obligations which are enforced in the EU. And these values are bounded with human dignity, that is one. The second part, human freedom, social freedom of citizens. Then equality of all human, which is consistent with no allowance to discrimination. And then interpersonal solidarity, which is extremely important in the light of the economic safety. This is all in the treaties. So you are not right, Mr. Shikra, if I spell your name right.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Sikora has a right to respond to Václav.
It's
1 minute as well.
Yeah, it's a secret actually, but it's not the most important part. So no, I don't agree with you because what you said, these words, these rights are of course existing, but they are also not objectively definable. So we can debate and we can discuss for hours what for example tolerance means or what human rights means. It is a complex issue. We don't have a short and legally binding definition to these words, these rights. So no, we can't say the states that you have rule of law and you don't have rule of law, because there are every state and every nation has its own traditions and its own legal system and its own constitutional system. They are all different, and we can't just say that one is good and one is bad.
Please don't make the things more complicated than they are. The prohibition of discrimination has been broken.
I'm sorry, but you cannot respond to response to ad vocem. So we shall move to the last speaker, Rodis Ronis from Latvian Conservatives. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. The constitutional courts in each country have reserved the right to review and dispute the applicability of EU law to the national constitution. However, the basic principle of rule of law, which in my opinion is the most important part of all this, should always be respected, as it was agreed upon when any country joins the European Union. Intervention with monetary or different types of sanctions in regard to Article 7 can be used, but it should only be implemented as a last resort. The recent example of Brexit has shown that some countries and their citizens can get a distaste of the Brussels bureaucracy and MEPs. Most of the times, it's not a fight about policy, but rather a fight about morals and the view of how the future of the EU should look like. An honest and open debate on the topic is necessary, but it can't happen if both sides are engaged in saber-rattling and threat-making. But, okay, as a comment to the previous comments about the LGBT-free zones in Poland, I think it is quite distasteful have these signs about LGBT, not LGBT ideology. So we'll see what happens there, and of course also what happens in Hungary in 2022, when Fidesz might even lose the election, as they have also lost the election in the Budapest. But we'll see what happens. I don't think that there is a lot of future in the European Union for this kind of sometimes hateful messaging. So we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that finishes all answers on the second issue of this debate. So we can move forward to the third issue. We can all agree that European Union is, of course, not a state, but also it is not a typical international union either. It has quasi-constitutional functionalities which can be fulfilled by the Treaty on European Union or by the Treaty on Functioning of the European Union. However, there was a project of the European Constitution which failed due to referendums organized in the Netherlands and France, and the project did not see its end. However, would you support such an European Constitution project today, which could answer some questions regarding the EU competences and EU functioning in a more constitutional way? And the first speaker would be Levente Sikra from Fidelitas. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So first of all, I have to repeat that the constitution has the state has constitutions. Sorry. So the EU is not a state, and we don't need an EU constitution. The main issue here, I think, that how can we be successful in Europe? And I think the way to be successful in Europe is the alliance of independent nation states. So the EU shouldn't have to be a federal state, the United States of Europe or something like that, because the EU's strength comes from its member states and its member nations and its traditions and so I think the EU constitution would be a very bad and very negative thing, which we don't really need. We have our independent states and nations, and we have our national constitutions, which are perfectly able to serve their purpose. So I think it is just the EU constitution. The idea of the EU constitution is just a bureaucratic idea that aims to steal national competences, and this is absolutely unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we shall move to the second speaker, Maja Raczyńska from Youth Forum Law and Justice. The floor is yours.
Well, to be honest, it's hard for me to imagine how would a European Union's constitution work actually, and how it would be placed in a legal system. Because first of all, to be legally binding, such constitution would have to be accepted by member states. So I don't really see a point of doing that. Would we rewrite treaties and name it constitution? I'm not sure what's the purpose of such an action. European Union has treaties, and they, in a way, work like a constitution. And even now, we have a problem with executing the treaties. So, no, to me, such an idea is just pointless. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answer. And the third speaker would be Rodis Ronis from Latvia. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I would not support a European constitution on the basis that there is no current coherent pathway towards the future of this union. There is no current framework for the next 50 to 100 years and how the EU should look in the timeline. How would the interactions with the USA, Russia, and China look then? A few aspects of the EU constitution project in 2004 can be implemented. A stronger and more coherent foreign policy is one of the things I would like to see from the EU. But a common foreign policy can be quite hard to implement because most states have different priorities in regards to foreign policy. The Baltics and Poland have disputes with Russia and Belarus, but Orban in Hungary likes to flirt with Putin and his cronies. Southern EU has problems with immigration from the south. Western Europe has priorities with the United States, so it would be quite hard to implement. I would not count myself as a EU federalist. I believe in national solutions for most of the issues. I am in favor of small government in general. There is room for the EU in lots of areas, but a single solution for all would not work most of the times. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Levente Sikra requests an advocem. 1 minute for you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I just need to state that the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban does not flirt with Putin. This is a lie, and this is not true. We have issues that we might to cooperate with Russia. Because it is not because we love this, but because we need to. Because, for example, we need gas and we need other things that Russia can deliver to Hungary. It is very simple. We don't flirt with Putin. We don't love him, but there are international realities of politics, and we must not forget them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rodis, you have 1 minute also to respond to Levente if you like.
Yeah, of course, I can do a quick response. Yeah, we can always talk about the realities, but of course, but also values should be should be kept in your head, because, well, let's just say the Baltics do not have a great history with Russia. Deportations, mass executions.
We neither.
Of course, Hungary also has this interesting history, but I think Hungary has actually quite forgotten about it in the recent years. I love Budapest. I've been there quite a few times, but I think there is a big dispute between how hard we should be on Russia. And this is what I also tried to make in my argument, is that all countries have different priorities and different views. So a common foreign policy could be hard to implement, which is what I made in my argument. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last speaker answering the question of the European Constitution would be Václav Jankroczek, Federation of Young Social Democrats. The floor is yours.
Well, if we talk about the European Constitution, then I think in twice. In my heart, I am supportive of it. Yes, of course, because the European Union is a community. It is a common value, and it is a great value. So, if we can have Polish constitution, and if we feel as Poles, as members of the Polish state, then we have all right to also feel as Europeans. And we need the law that binds us, and that is collected in form of a constitution, which is the highest form of law that can be enforced on the community. Yes, we need the European Constitution in order to emphasize all the values that are part of the European Union even more. However, the reality is different, and the reality in my country, namely Poland, is especially different. Because how can we debate on the creation of European Constitution if we cannot even obey our current national constitution? Mr. from Latvia says that the national competences are important. But what happens when the governments understand the national competences as the introduction of false court, the disciplinary court, which's only goal is to discipline and punish the judges that are nor subjective to the government? How can we say about national competences that all countries need to have preserved if the Polish Constitutional Court, which is under the political domination of the ruling party, deprives Polish women of the right to safe and legal termination of pregnancy in the event of severe and irreversible fatal diseases? Answer this question in your own minds.
Okay, thank you very much. And also Maria Raczyńska has requested ad vocem to Václav's speech. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I have a question to Václav. Do you feel that European Parliament has similar competences to competences of parliaments of member states? Because European Parliament is the only institution in EU that is being directly elected by the nations and democratically. So I would not make an equal sign between member states and European Union to say that if we have constitutions in member states, we should have it in European Union. European Union is still not a state, not even a federation. It's an international organization. So I don't think that's a proper argument for it. Second thing is, I would like to mention that Polish opposition tries to say that Poland is not a democratic country, but in Poland we have democratic elections, we have democratically chosen executive power and parliament. So that's just talking.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Václav can now respond to Maria, please.
How the European Union is being run differently than Poland in the face of the election, the direct election. In Poland, the Polish Parliament is directly elected, just as the European Parliament. However, the Polish government, just as the European Council and the European Commission, are not directly elected. And it is parallel, so I can see no difference here. Secondly, I am sad to say that democracy is not always full. And in Poland, we currently have a system which can be defined as hybrid democracy. A hybrid democracy in which there are appearances of the system being a democracy, but it is not, because the things are not fair, because the public TV is under domination of the ruling party. The media is being controlled by the ruling party. The church is in the financial and influential is being financially and influentially dependent from the ruling party, and vice versa. In case
the time has elapsed, so please quickly conclude.
Yes. In case of such phenomena, it is not right to say that we truly have full democracy in Poland. We do not, and I am sorry, and I am very sorry about it, as a fellow Polish.
And also, Rodis Ronis has requested ad vocem to Václav's speech, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that even though I might have been misinterpreted, I actually agree with Václav in most of these cases. I don't think that TV Prawo i Sprawiedliwość and their grasp on the TV stations and the media in Poland is a correct thing. I also don't believe that the recent changes to the court system in Poland are a good thing. And I don't think they can follow the rule of law there. So, and the basic principles. So I agree with his sentiment, but I would also say that these issues should be solved nationally in democratic processes instead of mandates from the European Union. So we will see what happens there, but mostly I would see this as a national issue. And I would not count on the Polish opposition to wait for the EU to help them out. I would ask for the Polish opposition just to be more constructive and try to see what they can do in their own national level. Thanks.
Thank you.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, please.
Easier said than done, I'm afraid. but we will do everything that is in our strength and minds to help to solve this situation. And without the support from the European institution, our task can be only more difficult.
Okay, thank you very much. And this has finished the third issue of our debate. And we shall move to the last one regarding the competences of the European Union, since, as we all know, member states have placed certain competences over to the European Union. So the European Union has certain competences regarding domestic issues of its member states, but also many different legislative powers and authority. And what do you think? What areas should the European Union never legislate? So, what competences should the European Union never have? And the first speaker would be Maria Raczyńska from Youth Forum Law and Justice. The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, I think European Union should never be able to intervene in cultural and or moral systems of the countries, and it should not intervene in how we elect our institutions, in how we perceive in the ways how we want to actually execute European Union's decisions, our own decisions. It should not give us maybe solutions to the problems. We can all debate or even sometimes agree what are the main problems of the European Union, but European Union should not tell us how to solve them, because our countries are different, a lot different. We have different economical situations, we have different demographical structure, we have different history. And I believe that we as sovereign nations know the best how to solve our problems, how to implement different solutions. So I believe that European Union should give the main directions in which we should go. Of course, it should be after a debate of the member states. So we make sure that every nation is treated equally and that interests of all the nations are represented properly. But when we go into details, it should always be a decision of member states.
Thank you very much. And the second speaker would be Rodis Ronis from Latvia. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Well, in my opinion, the European Union should never legislate a single minimum wage policy across the EU. For me, economics is my thing, and a single model for calculating a national minimum wage, a model, not a single wage, cannot take into account the stark differences that our 27 economies have. Just a few of the differences. The Baltic region has a low debt to GDP ratio due to the frugal austerity policies in the last crisis that we had. A larger than necessary minimum wage can hurt the competitiveness of the new European Union states in Central Europe and Eastern Europe. Another thing that the European Union should never legislate is the status of marriage. Do not get me wrong, I personally am in favor of same-sex civil unions, and they could be regulated EU-wide as to avoid the bureaucratic nightmare that is recognizing a partnership that was made out of country. But trying to legislate a fundamentally religious ceremony would not go down well in many of our countries and cultures. I could find more examples of unnecessary legislation in agricultural and energy sectors, but due to the climate issues our generation is facing, an urgent and united rework of the policies there is also necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the first speaker, Václav Jankroczek, Federation of Young Social Democrats. The floor is yours.
My friend from, the previous speaker from the Law and Justice Party said that countries are different. Yes, it is true. Countries are different. But people are not. People are not different. We, the people of Poland, are exactly the same as the people in Germany, France, Spain, the UK, Sweden, Norway, and other states of Europe. Whether they are members of the European Union or not, people are all the same in all parts of the world. As such, the European Union does the good way that it poses the rights that are that are common, such as human rights, human freedom, human dignity, interpersonal solidarity, and of course, the civic rights. The civic rights which are especially important upon people being put under court. If the court is not independent and it is dependent from the government on other institution, then the human rights, human freedoms, and human equality, that these rules then are broken. And these rules, unlike what my other friend said, are not subjectively defined. They are objectively defined. And I will always defend that sentence of mine. There must be the European Union that defies all the basics that countries that are willing to be member states follow.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last speaker concluding this debate today would be Levente Sikra from Hungary. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Just a quick reference to the previous topic. I am not an expert of Polish domestic policies, but I am used to these kind of accusations that hybrid regime and not democracy and such. So I think they are lies. On the issue, the European Union has a slogan which is unity in diversity, and I think we should stick to that. So the diversity of the member states, the diversity of the nations is the basis of the European Union, and therefore I agree with Maria and with what she said about the EU, what should not affect. So of course, family policy, marriage, and other issues are really national issues, and the EU don't have any right to say sentences on that issues. I think very important is education. Education is also a national issue, and the EU should not intervene. I think taxation and budget issues are really important national issues, and the EU don't have to intervene in this. Law enforcement is also important because this is a core of the national sovereignty, that the state has the only right to enforce the laws and not other institutions. And I think migration is another important issue that should be in national competence and not in EU competence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Rodis Ronis has requested Watson to Levente's speech. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick friendly follow-up question. How about talking about migration and European Union's external borders? How about the use of the EU Frontex agency to guard our borders in parallel with our national border guard troops? What is the position on that?
Thank you.
I think that we should divide the issues for two parts. So I think migration as an issue should be in national competence. The border protection is another issue, in my opinion, because border protection is based on Schengen treaties, and so this is legally binding. So I think Frontex should start working, to be honest, because it's not defending the European borders, and the migration is quite free today, and there are some countries, for example Poland and Hungary, which are defending their borders instead of Frontex, because Frontex does its job. So I think border protection is an important issue, and EU can and it actually should protect the borders, but the legal rules for the migration, who should be integrated, who should come to Europe, is a national issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also, since we're concluding soon our debate, Maria Raczyńska would like to request an advocem to Václav's previous speech. So I allow that. So Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to quickly say that I really like political, of course it's sarcasm, political parties that deny existence of different views and opinions. Like my fellow friend Václav, and saying that all people are the same is just ridiculous. It's a denial of existence of a culture, of different demographic structure, of different histories, of different views, opinions. It's just ridiculous, simply. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Václav, you can respond in 1 minute to Maria if you'd like. No? Okay.
Of course, I do want to respond.
Okay. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah. I'm just disappointed with what Maria said previously. Maria, your words assume that people are not equal, that one human is not equal to another. This is very dangerous path.
She didn't say that. She didn't say that. Please don't lie.
Yes.
Okay. But you said that I deny the view of others. Okay. Then I would like to say about the same-sex marriage. The previous speaker said that the European Union should not intervene with the domestic laws, namely also with the same-sex marriage. However, the prohibition of same-sex marriage is against the basic law of human equality. Because, okay, maybe the culture is different, maybe the history is different, but the human biology, the human psychology, it is the same. In our bodies, we are the same. We love the same. We suffer the same way. And yes, if the Catholic Church can prohibit same-sex marriage in all countries in which it has its parts, then why the European Union shouldn't have the right to make it legal? Because, as you said, you deny other point of view. How prohibiting any other person from marrying the person I love is denying your point of view? If you don't want to marry the person which has the same sex as you, just don't marry him or her. This is as simple as that. Human freedom, human equality, and human dignity is defined by the right to marry the person you love, even if that person has
the time has elapsed, so please just quickly conclude your answer.
I just did it. This was the end of my speech. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And also, Levente Seeker, I would like to have an advocem. 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much. So no one said that people are not have the same rights and dignity. This is very important. And the other thing is that, of course, the legality of same-sex marriage is very important national issue, because every nation has its own traditions and its own thinking and its own way of life, and we don't have any right to intervene that internationally. So if a country wants to legalize same-sex marriage, so be it. Every country has the right to make such a decision, but they don't. We must not say from other states that the other states should do the same. And I think it is very, very dangerous that Václav has arguments based on emotions, because these issues are not emotional issues. These are very important legal and social and cultural issues. And if you have arguments just based on that, you want to love someone or something like that, this is emotion. This is not the topic we are now discussing. This is not an argument. This is just emotion. And I think everyone can love everyone, but the marriage is an institution. It has traditions. It's another thing. That love is not the same as marriage. You can love anyone, but you can't marry anyone. I think this is fair to say.
Okay, thank you. And Václav, 1 minute.
A very short response. The previous speaker said that not every nation has the same point of view. Not every nation has the same culture. And I will tell you this. Not every person has the same point of view, and not every person has the same culture. And my culture, my point of view, is different than yours. And the country's law, the European Union's law, has to adapt such law that would be applicable to all of us. So if you don't want to marry a person which has the same sex as you do not have to. You do not have to engage in a marriage. But if I or a friend of mine who has a different point of view than you thus has such willingness, the law should allow him or her to do accordingly. Thank you very much.
Emotions again.
The law is for everyone, not for the elite group. The law has to be applicable for everyone. And this is not linked to emotions. This is linked to the basic law of the European Union: human dignity, human equality, and human freedom. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And it means that our debate today is concluded. So thank you very much to you all for participation today. And today on my Politics channel at the international debate, we had an honor to guest Ronis from Latvian Konservatīvā party, Levente Sikra from Fidelitas, Maria Raczynska from Youth Forum Law and Justice, and Václav Jankrocek from Federation of Young Social Democrats. Thank you very much, and goodbye.